I might remind everybody to get their phones on silent and all that good stuff so we can move into the meeting. Welcome to the June 20th Economic Development Authority monthly meeting. And I guess we will, if everybody's not aware, Mallory called sick this morning and Robert's sitting in for her. Yes. We are certainly in good hands to make that happen. And the city manager's already been apprised of the situation.
Yes.
Everybody's on the same page, ready to move forward. And Robert, if you'll start us with a roll call, we'll get moving.
Yes, sir. Mr. Hines.
Present.
Ms. Jiggets.
Present.
Mr. Kelly.
Present.
Ms. Revel.
Here.
Mr. Scott. Mr. Thomason.
Here.
And Mr. Thompson. You have quorum.
All right, fantastic. Okay, so we have before us the minutes of our regular meeting on May 30th of June 17th. We have any questions, comments, or the motion?
Yes, I can make the motion with a correction for the May 30th minutes, and then with the June 12th also. Just strike the duplicative Mr. title preceding Commissioner Hines' name.
Where's that?
Where page what?
On the May 30th minutes, when they reference Commissioner Hines, it's two Misters preceding his name.
Guess I'll second as well.
I don't see where you are. Just
I don't see it.
Well, let's believe it's there.
I'm not down here. I'm just trying to.
Yeah.
Was it first paragraph, second
On the
paragraph?
May 30th minutes.
May 30th.
Page.
Yes, we're on the May 30th.
Okay. No,
Which page?
Page 3 or 4?
It wasn't, can you get it? Okay, I didn't have the page's number.
Here's the one. I've got
No, I have
it.
not.
Last page, great catch, Commissioner
Where is
Jiggets.
it?
Last page, action out of closed session.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I know I saw it.
Okay. If we have a first from Ms. Jiggets, a second from Mr.
Chairman.
Kelly.
I would like one correction on one thing that I did mention about the facade improvement grant was not necessarily just the signage piece of it, but the actual whole application needed to be revised as well. And that's our second to last paragraph on page 2. Right above the action, it says Mr. Hines voiced his opinion, including signage, and the facade improvement grant application should be addressed. I questioned the putting together the committee again. That was not necessarily just in reference to the signage. If I can have the minutes to reflect that, that would be great. And I think Mr. Kelly's already seconded.
The second yes on the minutes.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get my protocol correct. Are we, because our motion was not with that, so are we amending the motion
Yes.
Amend the motion.
to that change as well? Okay,
Yes,
great.
I'm in the motion.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Mr. Hines.
Yes.
Ms. Jiggets.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Ms. Revel.
Yes.
And Mr. Thomason.
Yes. All right.
Here.
And now we'll move to the minutes of our joint meeting. And oddly enough, we have none of our liaisons with us today, but we do have Councilman Moody with us today. He's present there. We thank you again for inviting us
He's representing
to be with the meeting.
Oh, okay.
What I said was it's that he's representing our 2 liaisons that could not be here.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. All right, do we have any discussion? Chair will accept the motion.
Move adoption.
No, I have a correction under action. Instead of Mr. Jiggets, it should be Ms. Jiggets
Ms. Kelly asked him.
for the gender title reference.
On the,
Yeah. On that one.
You're really better to stop. He's here.
Where's the typo?
Back to you.
Ms. Jiggets. Yes. Morning, sir.
Yeah, so we have a
I'll amend my motion to include that correction.
Okay, do we have a second? Second. A second from Ms. Revel.
all right. Mr. Hines.
Yes.
Ms. Jiggets?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Staying, I was not here.
Ms. Revel?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
And I'll ask Mr. Thompson.
Mr. Scott.
Yes. And Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Thank you for coming. Motion carries.
All right, motion carries. All right. All right. Ms. Blackford, would you like to take us into the financials?
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, so we're going to begin with the page 1 of the unaudited statement of net position. The negative pool cash and cash and temporary investments were reduced by $92,930.29 and $109,067.62 respectively. This is the net effect of inflow and outflow activities that will be discussed on page 6. We did get $34.17 in interest for the escrow account. Accounts payables balance was $4,206.92 for invoices that were booked, but they were not paid as at May 31st. So total liabilities and net position as at May 31st is $13,770,186.02. Moving into page 2 of the unaudited statements of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. For May's expenses, $3,800 was paid for environmental work on 3125 Victory Boulevard, as well as to install signage at Victory Village. There was $2,827.74 that was paid for stormwater fees. $7,691.68 was paid for ground maintenance, legal fees, utilities for the development properties. $1,874.70 was paid for property insurance. $1,386 was for indirect cost allocation for May, and also a prepayment for June as well. And $40 was paid for outgoing wire fees. This brought total expenses for May to $17,620.12. For May's income, $187.04 was received for interest revenues, $10,416.67 for lease income, and of course that was transferred back to the city, resulting in a net loss of $17,433.08. On page 3 of our unaudited property held for resale, it shows that the $7,691.68 that was paid for May, resulting in a total investment of $10,863,348.10. On page 4 of the activities report, it gives all the details of the expenses that were paid and show cumulative expenses through May to be $1,344,554.58. On page 5, cash and temporary investment balance was reduced. That was because a pooled cash was settled for the April's balance of $119,000. So we did send a wire to the city to settle the negative pool cash as at April 30th for $119,597.16, and that caused a reduction in cash and temporary investment. There were 2 improvement grants that were approved at the last meeting for Cafe Europea and also Monumental Methodist Church in the amount of $1,926.25 and $21,470 respectively. And that's page 5. So moving on to Okay, so because of those 2 approved grants, the total that is available to be awarded for FY 2017 is $142,529.69. On page 6, which is our unaudited pool cash, you see that the balance of $119,597.16 that was settled, that was our inflow activity. And for May's expenses, that amounted to $26,666.87. And so that is the balance, the ending balance of pooled cash for May 31st.
Any questions?
Just have one, Ms. Blackford. Can we walk through the pool cash reimbursement inflow of 119?
Correct, yes.
What is that apprised?
That was all the expenses that were EDA paid, but it was through the city. It went through the city, so that is why it was a negative pool cash on EDA's books. So at some point in time, it gets settled. So EDA sends a wire to the city, and so that gets zeroed out.
So call that inflow activity. That's inflow to the city, not inflow to the economic development.
Okay,
It's actually outflow.
that would be an outflow. Yes. Okay,
So that was last month's expenses.
that's correct. Yes.
And while we're on that, what is the trigger that causes the time to make the transfer to reconcile with the city?
It's usually done quarterly.
Okay.
And we try to get it done close to the year end as possible to offset that balance.
June 30th is our year end, so we'll probably do another transfer next week just to get the whole books settled. Also, we have the auditors starting to ask questions and start getting their information for the fiscal year end. So our books will be audited probably sometime in August.
Okay, fantastic.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Would it be too much, and I know this is a stress for the city to do their financials from time to time, but when that pool cash is reconciled on that quarterly basis, is there any way we can get like a detail of what was actually paid in that 119, in that quarterly financial? Is that possible? Then one shot, one kind of sheet of this was paid on behalf, and we're settling it up.
Okay, yes, and I think that detail was sent to the chairman when the wire was actually signed over.
So we could put that as part of the
Yes, we
financial
definitely-
package.
Yeah, just on the quarterly financial,
Yes.
that when that does take place, could we just have?
Chairman or Treasurer?
I think it was sent to you, because I did send it to staff.
Staff, not
Was he
the.
copied on something? We get that.
Well,
I can enter.
Yeah, please.
they
Yes,
were
it's on
supposed
the
to
check.
If you
actually
take a
send
look
it.
at page 6 of your financials, you'll see where it says outflow activity. Right, you'll notice it's 266687. That is the cumulative expenses for this particular month. So where you see 119,597, that would have been the cumulative expenses you'd had from April. So if you had April's financials, you would see all those added
Yeah,
together.
you're seeing a monthly.
Well, right, I'm just talking about just in one kind of.
And we could do that.
Sheet. I wouldn't imagine it being
Every
that
month
much
that
difficult.
whenever we do the quarterly transaction, we'll add a sheet that shows everything.
Sure.
Because we already have it, it's just putting it in one.
It's simply just putting it in. That's not, just when we do the quarterly pull out, I think it would be good for us to be reminded of that.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome. So do you have a
I'm sorry,
motion?
real quick. So next month, beginning pool cash, we'll have 531.17 on this report for the June report, and it'll say 26.6.
That's correct, the beginning balance, which
Will it be
showed.
as inflow or outflow? Because that's what it will be outflow instead of inflow?
Well, that's going to be outflow because it's
So that'll
going
be
out
corrected?
of the, yes,
Okay.
so yes, that would be corrected.
And as Ms. Kelly was stating, it's going to be different because they're going to try to reconcile at the end of the month.
Right.
To close out the
So
fiscal year.
it should be zero. So whatever's in June plus the 26,000.
We'll have incurred expenses from July 1 to whenever we meet as well, too, right? So there may still be a balance on there.
Right, right.
This part will have already been reconciled through the end of the month.
Through the end of the month. And then anything we have in June, we'll probably put in there. So we'll try to get it as close to zero as possible by the end of the year.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one last thing, and it has nothing to do with the financials, but it does kind of, there's mentioned some signage at Victory Village. I'm not sure why we're putting signage up there. We got some
I don't know.
issues there. Is that something maybe staff can research for me and get back?
You can certainly research.
Yeah, that'll be great. Thank you.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the unaudited financials as presented?
Second.
All right, we have a first from Mr. Revel, and a second from Mr. Keller.
Mr. Hines,
Yes.
Ms. Jiggets, Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Ms. Revel,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Thomason,
Yes.
and Mr. Thompson. Motion carries.
All right, this time we'll jump over into some of our old business, and Mr. Ashby, would you like to?
Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, and members of the commission, we did have a hearing yesterday on the Victory Village matter. The judge has seen fit to send all of the issues, both the transfer as well as the disputes about reimbursement, to arbitration. The list pendants is still in place. I've asked, because we're making this transition, I've asked council to report, to come back on the July meeting so that we can have a closed session and the commission will have an opportunity to delve into the details of the matter going forward.
All right, thank you. We look forward to hearing more and moving that along. All right, at this time we have some new business. So, as y'all know that Mr. Moore has been acting as a business development manager. We would like to see him move into the role of the assistant secretary, and I think Mr. Thompson, you had a motion on that?
I'd like to make a motion that Mr. Moore be appointed as assistant secretary of this board.
Second.
All right. And Mr. Hines,
Yes.
Ms. Jiggets,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly, Ms. Revel,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Thomason,
Yes.
and Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Congratulations, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
It's exciting.
Congratulations to other duties as assigned.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, and then we'll turn it over to you for the
Yes.
LIP program.
Yes, briefly, members of the authority, 612 Court Street, gentlemen representing that property, Pythian Castle, have come before us, or come before you, and requested an extension on the facade improvement grant that they have been granted previously. Back on July 22nd, 2016, this board did approve the FIG application. One caveat to that application was that this application was a little bit longer than normal. Normally, you give a 90-day period to complete the work, but this time, due to the extent of the work being done, you all granted a nine-month period. We are here now with a request from Mr. Kyriakis, and I'm hoping I'm saying that right, and they are asking for an additional 4 months due to wind damage that was sustained during the storm season that recently passed. This would extend their approval from the July 20th, 2017 date to now. They must be completed by November 20th, 2017. And so we are here simply requesting that staff moves that this be approved. They are working diligently on the project, and this should bring them to fruition. Yes, and Mr. Kyriakis is here, along with his partner, Mr. Haskell, with any questions that you may have.
What exactly was the wind damage that was done?
What happened was on the left elevation.
Would you mind standing just so everybody can see you? Thank you.
Thank you for your time, everybody. Appreciate it. On April 19th, when the storms came through Portsmouth, Virginia Beach, and so forth, we have brick facade, as you know. Wind entered the left elevation, and what it did, and I believe you're a contractor, is that correct? And it pushed out the facade approximately on the front of the building, approximately 30 feet by 10 feet. This is on the second floor where you see Pythian Castle there. From that point, what we did, we obtained a public adjuster to represent us with this claim. That is Goodman Gable Gould, the premier public adjuster for America. From that point, we segued into meetings with the Proventure company who is handling this claim for Seneca. From that point, because it pushed out the facade, the whole, this thing is going to come to fruition being fixed, but our main thing was safety. From that point, we hired an engineer, Centertron, Mr. Christos Tomales, to come in to help us shore the building. At that point, Seneca brought in an engineer to shore up, to make sure that we shored this up correctly. At this point, we are in the, working with the insurance company to settle this claim. We anticipate with the 2 engineers that we have involved, we anticipate we're hoping settlement on this issue in the next 30 days. I'm going to rewind back to where we're at with the project. We're 80% complete with the project. We would have met the July, we would have met the date to completion, but a couple things. With the insurance claim, number 1, safety. We had to make sure it was shored up correctly. We brought in the proper engineers. Number 2, we were working diligently with adjusters to settle this. In essence, 4 months will do it. At that point, we are just waiting for answers from our insurance company, okay? If for any reason we receive a negative report from the insurance company, we are ready to move forward with a repair. And just a point of interest, the work from the insurance company is not overlapping work to the work being performed. In essence, what I'm trying to say is we have repairs to be made. From that point on, we can complete the tuck pointing, and that's where we're at with it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir, Mr. Hines.
Just a point of clarification, this now would actually cross fiscal years. Am I understanding that our next year's budget would actually be impacted by the $25,000 so their beginning balance would run to $275 if we approve this? Am I understanding that correctly?
The money would move through, yes.
Right, so it wouldn't necessarily, so instead of us having a full $300,000 at the beginning of this fiscal year, we would actually have $275 if we approve this.
Unless you want to make a budget adjustment.
Unless we do a budget adjustment.
Yeah, I think we would
just need to think about doing a budget adjustment so everybody else, you know.
Can this body encumber funds that are
Yeah, well,
already?
we can reserve the funds.
Yes.
and-
Okay, I just what I'm asking is, are
Yes,
we?
we can put a
Does this body have
reservation
this authority?
and make it a liability to pay for the next year, so it wouldn't affect next year's budget.
Okay. We wanted to make sure we had that power to do that, because I know cities and schools can do that, but I didn't know if we could. Okay.
Just to clarify.
Answers my concerns. Thank you.
Just to clarify, staff is recommending that we accept the extension.
Yes.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second from Ms. Jiggets. Not Mr. Jiggets, but Ms. Jiggets.
Mr. Chairman, one last question. Do we feel that this extension should be enough? I know how insurance companies can drag their feet when it comes to paying. I'd hate for them to have to come back again to ask for another extension. Are we certain that, if I may ask?
Yeah, we are prepared if we will be finished with the insurance company or not. We're prepared if this extension is granted, the shooting match will be over. We will not come back for another extension.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. I think Ms. Jiggets.
No, I was just the motion.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Then Mr. Hines.
Yes.
Ms. Jiggets.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Ms. Rebel.
Yes.
Mr. Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Thomason.
Yes.
And Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
All right. Motion carries.
All right. Congratulations.
We are grateful for your time, and thank you so much. We're grateful for your time. Thank you.
All right, so for those of you that were at the joint meeting and those who saw it online, some conversation about the expansion of the LIPS programs and some other things along those lines and how we could serve others in the city. And you saw the request of council to what we could do to look at that. Of course, it's time for us to look at the program again anyway. So Mr. Hines has agreed to chair a committee, and Ms. Rebel has agreed to be the second person on that committee to work with staff. So just wanted to make that official, so we now have the new LIPS committee in place, and Mr. Hines is the chair for that. Staff is looking forward to trying to put something together in the next 30 days. To have something for the next meeting, not to wait another year on that. But I would like to consider the extension of the committee throughout that to be ready for the following year. So with one of your charges is to make sure that Mr. Moody has some information in regarding to how we can expand that to others and what areas we look at to do that. So,
Okay.
all righty. I thank you, and thank you for your service in that.
Does that meet your timeline, Ms. Rebel?
And obviously, the ad hoc will invite comments and feedback from the fellow commissioners.
I was actually going to say that if anybody has any general ideas for us to start with, if you can send me an email, and Kathy, I would assume the same. Would love to hear your initial thoughts.
Yeah, and everything should funnel through staff just for the point of entry and, making everything clean.
Sure.
So just send them to Mallory, and Mallory will disseminate them back out. That's the way they need to go. But yeah, please, we want to do that like we do with all the committees. Get all the input you can. The sooner the better. Again, they want to take some action in the next 30 days if possible on some of the adjustments. So I look forward to what you can bring to bear on that. So and certainly of all the commissioners, Mr. Kelly, I think, is a resource you don't want to miss in that, because he was so heavily involved in this and has the most tenured of all of us here on the board.
Absolutely.
Making that happen, and understands what some of the thought processes were and why some of the initial guidelines and all were put in place. So thank you again for helping on that. So
absolutely.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, sir. 3215 Academy Avenue, that's the former Churchland Library. As you recall, the EDA was requested by the city to market that property, and we now have a letter of intent in place with a potential developer for office space and a training facility there. And this item is on the agenda today simply to give you a heads up. The city still owns that property, and we'll be going to council on the June 27th to ask council for permission to transfer it. Yeah.
Question, at that point, you will be drafting a cooperation agreement?
There will be a cooperation agreement.
Between the council and EDA?
Correct.
That's okay.
Just glad to see that moving forward and have that building fully utilized. All right, so thank you for that update, Mr. Miller. All right, so at this time, we are going to need to move into closed session. So, Mr. Thompson, are you going to have a motion for us?
Whereas the Board of Commissioners of the EDA desires to enter into a closed meeting, and whereas the compliance with the requirement of Virginia Freedom of Information Act, the topic to be discussed are set forth below in the subparagraphs, paragraph 2.2-3711 of the Virginia Code, authorizing discussion of the topic in closed session are set forth in parentheses after each topic. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners shall meet in closed meetings for the purpose of discussing the acquisition and disposition of the publicly held real property interest wherein an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body. Northeast corner of Washington Street and Court Street. And discussing a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry where previous announcements have been made of the business or industry interest in locating or expanding its facility in the community.
We have a second.
Second.
Mr. Kelly.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear.
Yeah, oh, yeah, definitely.
You were all quiet with that second.
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Ms. Jiggets?
Yeah. Right now.
We know who did the typo now.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Rebel?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
And Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
All right. We are in closed session.
We need a
I see you. Occupant's razor.
And in accordance to the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. Now therefore be it hereby resolved that the minutes shall reflect each commissioner unless his or her prior statement in the minutes of this meeting hereby certifies that of the best of his or her knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the meeting required upon this chapter, and only such public meetings matter were identified in the motions which were closed meetings and convened were heard, discussed, or considered in this closed meeting by the commissioners adopted this 20th day of June 2017.
To have a second. Second for Mr. Kelly. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Ms. Jiggets? Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Revel?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
And Mr. Thompson?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank
All
you.
right, two quick things just before we get rolling out of here. So first off, I know there was some conversation about officers. Just a reminder, it's a 2-year is what we do that, so we're not in the cycle for this year to do that. We'll do that next year about this time, and we'll establish a committee, a nomination committee and all for that. So just remind everybody of that. And then just formally, Councilman Simmons and Dr. Patton, whatever we can do to start having more joint meetings like the planning sessions that we were doing. I mean, they were very helpful for me when I first came on. We met at Bidawee. I mean, and it meant a lot. I want to know that we're all in line working towards larger long-term plans, that where our actions are doing that, and helps us make some of the decisions that we need to make, and also help us, as it were, justify those decisions. I know there was from the joint council meeting, you weren't there, but just some of the stuff it seemed to me was could have been perceived as feeling-driven instead of plan-driven, and I'd like for us to be plan-driven. We know that we might want to open the LIPS program to these people, but it's not part of our plan, and everybody's moving forward with the plan, not, I wish we could help these people, and then we try to look for ways to change things to do that. Not saying we shouldn't do that, but just, so anything we can do to.
In all fairness, and I wasn't there, obviously, because of my surgery, but the point of these joint meetings that the city council's having with each board is feeling-driven. It is get to know you. Who is Dean Thomason? What does he look like? When I passed him in the grocery store, oh, that's the EDA chairman. That is the point of those meetings. They are not for planning purposes. And the meetings you're talking about, the quarterly meetings we used to have with all big boards, is something it's interesting you say that, because a lot of folks I've heard have said, well, there was too much reporting and we really didn't get anything done. I felt like, to me, most of the work was done around that dinner table where you actually sat with other commissioners and got to really talk through things as opposed to listening to a lot of reports.
Well, we did know some things that we wouldn't have known about otherwise that others were working on, but also that, it was actually a little bit of a cheerleading session too as well, that we know there's things we can tout out there that the city is doing well and that we don't even know that we're working towards. It's nice to know that as an authority and other boards to work together, but they could be more time spent on those, but yeah.
Good to hear.
So.
Yes, I have something to say. I would like to know when the representative from the Housing Authority will return to attending our meetings. That's always been very helpful because there are opportunities there for us to leverage each other with grant opportunities and what they have available to help with prospects. So they have a full board now, and so I would like to see their chairman or vice chairman begin attending our meetings again.
Who was the last PRJ? So that, since Kathy Warren is left, so I'm getting ready to say, I'm in my 292nd day of a second year. I've never seen anybody here. So if it is that there is a slot on the EDA for someone to be appointed, then we have a meeting today with the PRJ, and I will call that to the interim director's attention.
Yes,
I don't think it was a person, in my time coming back and forth here, I've never seen a PRHA commissioner here.
So
staff
Staff, yeah, Kathy Warren.
Because it was Kathy.
They would attend as an ex officio.
Right,
Okay, we'll make sure that happens.
And that's in the bylaws.
Okay, we'll make sure it happens by our next meeting.
Yeah, and I think there's an open invitation for the chairs of all to attend the other meetings. So I get the notification for the PPIC meeting and stuff like that, so that it's more of a, I think it's more of an open invitation than it is a requirement or an appointment to those meetings.
Well, no, in the bylaws, the ex officio
officio.
include
Okay.
staffing persons from the Redevelopment Housing Authority.
We'll make sure that happens.
They probably don't know.
They don't.
They probably don't.
The ones that are there now don't know to do it.
And it would be good to have their feedback, because they've got a lot of properties that butt right up against
Yeah,
ours. and-
yeah.
We'll
All
make
right.
it happen.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like for us to maybe have staff look at another retreat similar to what we kind of had for, especially for the benefit of some of the newer commissioners. I think we had that last July or August. I think it would be good for us all kind of get our head wrapped around and you know, I found it very beneficial instead of being confined in terms of, you know, the hour to hour and a half we do once a month, to kind of have a sit-down planning session for our EDA as we move forward. I'd like for you to at least discuss that with staff.
So, no, yeah, we definitely want to get that happening, so can't have enough of them. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your good work. Oh, by the way, people, everybody that got that information, that was closed session information, needs to be turned back in.
Right.